Hey guys, this is Church. I'm going to provide some commentary on my game playing Zorga against Bruce. Alright, I'm going to pull up the replay. Alright, so I'm playing on Cardfight area. Got a right deck set up. You can see my opening hand. It's not that bad. I got 2 orders in my hand. Alright, so starting Vanguard is Dream Nibbling. I believe I'm going first. Yes, alright. So I'm going to discard one of the orders to write Rancor Chain. Using Rancor Chain's ability, I'm going to Soul Blast, draw 2, and I discard another order. So I'll discard the Cursed Souls, Ride, and Agony. My opponent goes into Steve, uses a skill, calls the Rearguard back. And at this point, I'm thinking I don't want to take damage early, especially against Bruce, with their 5 attacks in the end. So I go for the 1 to pass, he doesn't get it. Alright, my turn, I draw. I'm going to discard the Maiden because I value the 20k shield later for the front triggers. And Black Husk Dragon's Vanguard skill, I get an order back from my drop zone. And I just go straight in for the attack, just 10k to the Vanguard. Now, my opponent just takes it. I get a heal trigger, don't heal any damage. Alright, my opponent's turn, he goes into Richard, uses the skill to put the Rearguard back into Soul to draw a card. I think he just goes for attack, yep. I take it because I need a counterblast for Zorga next turn. So I draw, I discard the heal that I got last turn, and I write Zorga. I use the skill to bring back Hendrina, and I use her skill to mill 3 on place. And then I decide to use her other skill, which is retire herself, and then when I activate orders, I don't have to pay the Soul Blast cost. So I do that. Thinking about my play, I just think I play Cursed Souls, Ride, and Agony here. Yeah. And I choose not to Alchemy Magic. So, Cursed Souls, usually I would Soul Blast 2, but since I activate Hendrina, I don't have to Soul Blast anything. I look at the top 4, and I get to call 1 unit. So I call the Hydrorail Dragon, which is a new unit from the Festival Collection. I just go straight in, Vanguard attack to Richard. He says no guard. I get another heal trigger. This time I actually heal. And I go Hydraulic Ram attacks the Vanguard. He guards it. Hydraulic Ram does have an on-hit ability. I pull it now, thinking what he's going to discard to ride up to his Bruce. He discards the grade 3 to ride into Bruce. And just go straight for attack on the rear guard. Doesn't want to give me any counter blast. He gets a draw and a PG. Good drive check. Alright, my turn. I have Persona Ride, so I go for it. I unfortunately draw my over trigger. Now, I have 2 orders in my hand. I can't really do much, so I decided to activate Spiritual Body Condensation, Soul Blasting my grade 3 to get Hydraulic Ram Dragon back. Because if this Hydraulic Ram Dragon hits, I can retire it to bring Zorga back to my hand from the drop zone and get another Persona Ride. So I attack with my Vanguard. He says no guard again. It's really saving up the cards in his hand. He gets a heal trigger. He gets a front trigger. Sorry. I attack with Hydraulic Ram Dragon. He knows the effect, so he guards it. And that's the end of my turn. I'm at 0 to 3. Now my opponent Persona rides. He's in Final Rush. And he calls on the new Leonard. Activates one of the new orders, giving his front row plus 10,000 power. As you can see, this is the strength of the Bruce deck. It just gets stronger and stronger as time goes by. I just clicked that regard asking what's the exact power on that regard because it should be more, so it's 35. Alright. So my opponent calls a PG from his hand. He's going in. Oh, he uses the grade 3 to suck up the PG, so charge and draw. Alright, 51, that's a big number, I take it. That unit skill, it goes into Soul, gives something else plus 10,000 power. He gives it to Leonard. And it just attacks Leonard by itself, 45 to the Vanguard. I believe I take this too. Yeah. Leonard skill activates. He has a soul charge, and he calls one unit out from the drop zone. I think he calls back the same dog that gets 10,000 power. I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Alright. So Vanguard swings in. I don't want to lose to crits. So he's activating Bruce's skill. And I'm pretty sure I just guard with a PG. So yeah, I throw a PG down. I discard the crit trigger. And my opponent draw checks another Leonard. And he gets the over trigger. The Cray Elemental over trigger that gives 2 units plus 100 million. So these next 2 attacks are guaranteed to hit. My opponent activates that grade 1. And he also remembers to remove the over trigger and draw a card. And at this point, I'm just taking these attacks. So he attacks with Marjorie. He attacks with Leonard using Portable skill to get a card into his hand. And Leonard's on hit skill. He still charges 1 and gets another Portable. And this one's only 18. So he's attacking my rear guard using his skill to get the Portable back to his hand. So my rear guard is unfortunately retired. And he ends his turn. So it's my turn. I draw another PG. I go for Persona Ride again. And I draw a front trigger. Let's see. I think about my play. I believe I just decide to bring back the Hydrorail Dragon with Zorga's skill. Yeah, I use Vanguard skill. And I bring back Hydraulic Ram Dragon, yes. And then I call a heal out. Because I'm going to Alchemy Magic with my Grief, Despair, and Rejection. And the ruling on Alchemy Magic is whichever order you play from your hand has to resolve its effect first before you activate the effect from the order in the drop zone. So knowing that, I just put my heal trigger back in the back row because I'm going to cost something in the front row. So I pay the cost, which is Soul Blast and Counter Blast. I'll revive the Fleet Eater, and I'm giving the total power to the heal trigger, Zorga, and Hydraulic Ram because they are the 3 units on the field at the time. And I just go straight for battle. I tag with Zorga. My opponent decides to PG. Twin Drive, a Ghost Chase, and a Regurgitation from the Underworld, so nothing. I attack with Hydraulic Ram. My opponent decides to take it, so I use Hydraulic Ram's skill, retiring itself, to add Zorga from my drop zone to my hand, so next turn I'll have another Persona Ride. And I decide to attack with Fleet Eater, using Fleet Eater's skill. I Soul Blast 1, so that if he would guard, he has to guard with more than 2 cards. I mean, 2 or more cards. He decides to take it, gets a draw trigger. At this point, I'm noticing my opponent's deck is very low. He's only at 13 cards in the deck, and I think I'm going to win by deck out. So he gets the Persona Ride, draws. My opponent's only got 12 cards in the deck now. And I believe he activates the order again. That gives his front row 10,000 power, but also makes him draw again. My opponent here is thinking about his plays. Bruce has become very, very strong. So he's going to call the Portable back. And is he going to call the grade 3? No, he does activate the order, giving 10,000 to the front row. And he draws a card. Okay. And he calls the grade 3. Alright, so he attacks with the grade 3, boosted, puts the Rigard into the soul to soul charge and draw. It's attacking me for 51. I think I decided to take this because it's such a big hit. Yeah, and I get a trigger. So now my opponent should be attacking with Leonard next. Attacking my Vanguard using the grade 1 skill. He'll put the other grade 1 into the soul to get a PG and add it back to his hand, making sure that he has enough defense for my next turn. It's attacking me for 43. I used the new front trigger, which is 20k shield and an intercept, making my guard 48. He attacks with the Vanguard for 33 to my 23. And uses the skill Soul Blasting 5 to restand both his armor units. Alright. This is where I decide to use the new front trigger again and one of my Ghost Chases. Ghost Chase has an ability to put a card on my field that's not being attacked back into my hand and get 5,000 shield, so I put the heal trigger back into my hand. Now he attacks with Leonard, and I'm going to throw the heal trigger out to guard it. I'm just making sure to ask him if it was only 35,000, but I thought it would be stronger. So I threw the front trigger out by accident. I put it back in my hand. Say sorry. Here's the heal trigger. And then he attacks with the Marjorie, and I just throw my over trigger out there. Don't want to waste cards to guard. So during my turn, I draw. I Persona Ride. I draw again. I decide to play the Headhunter, which his effect is he reduced the cost of Alchemy Magic orders by 1 counterblast. So I'm going to play the Headhunter down to reduce the cost, and then I believe I'm going to activate Regurgitation from the Underworld and Alchemy Magic it with Grief, Despair, and Rejection, which normally costs 2 counterblasts and 1 soul blast, but because of Headhunter's skill, it should only cost 1 counterblast and 1 soul blast. Alright, so yeah, I called the Headhunter and tell my opponent I reduce this counterblast. Activate Regurgitation from the Underworld and Alchemy Magic it with Grief, Despair, and Rejection, paying 1 counterblast and 1 soul blast. With Grief, Despair, and Rejection, with Regurgitation from the Underworld effect, I target Leonard, retiring Leonard. It says during Alchemy Magic, I get to revive 2 grade 2s from my drop zone, so I retire the grade 2 unit. I get to call Blacktear Dragon and Fleet Eater, and then Grief, Despair, and Rejection will give 10,000 power to 3 units of my choice. I believe I give just my 3 farmer units, and my unit in the back is plus 5,000 power if I have Alchemy Magic this turn, so it becomes a 13k booster. I use Zorga's Vanguard skill to revive the Overtrigger because I have a Ghost Chase in my hand, and that will be great for defense. So I just attack with Zorga, my opponent PGs. I get another heal trigger. I'm very lucky. So I recover, I give it to Fleet Eater. I attack with Blacktear Husk for 40,000. My opponent guards with the second PG in his hand. This should be his last PG. I attack with Fleet Eater for 53. My opponent throws out the new front trigger and 2 heals. That guards my attack. Now, looking at my opponent's deck, he only has 6 cards left. Persona Rise again, now he only has 5. My opponent has 3 cards in the soul, and he's looking to get the last 2 cards in the soul to restand with Bruce. Now, I know this. Looking at my hand, I see I have enough guard to get over anything. So, even though I feel like the deck is strong, I'm pretty sure I'm going to live this turn. My opponent weighs through his options and figures that he needs to get the restand off to win the game. as he thinks and mulls his options over, he knows that he has to get rid of the over trigger, because the only reason I would call it is if I had a Ghost Chase. Him understanding that, he does use Leonard to attack that column, and Leonard will give him the 2 soul that he needs to get to 5 so he can do the restand. I just make sure to ask him, are you sure? Because the soul charge is mandatory. He says yeah. So both my units get retired. He soul charges 1 and decides not to call anything because it is up to. Leonard does not have to call anything. So he soul charges his first card, soul charges the second card from the second on hit. Because I don't know if you noticed, if Leonard hits 2 units, his on hit procs twice because it's not a once per turn skill. So he kills my 2 rear guards. He attacks the other with the grade 3. I take it. Get another crit. I haven't really got any triggers this game, offensively. My opponent goes for the Bruce Soul Blast 5 with only 3 cards in this deck. First drag check. I decide the PG. First drag check. Unfortunately, my opponent gets a draw trigger. Draws 1 card, and then the next card was a crit. And my opponent has decked out, and I have won the game. And I showed my opponent that I had all 3 PGs in my hand so that he doesn't feel bad about decking out. He knows that I did have the defense to guard against this attack. And he says, good game. I say good game. And thank you guys for watching.